Other than the sticking points of date and immunity for the non-military, even the Blackwater guys, et cetera. What other issues are there that are holding this up as you see it?
There are two main issues. The first one, real fear from Iraq's neighbors of how U.S. forces might be used to intervene with or influence, in particular, Syria and Iran. The incident 2-3 weeks ago when U.S. troops moved inside Syrian territory and chased somebody or killed a few people, these emphasize the concern that neighbors have. And neighbors, in particular Iran, has influence over Iraqi politics. Everybody knows it. So if Iran is not happy with that agreement, strongly not happy, not just because Iran doesn't like it, but because it has concerns about its security, then obviously Iran is going to use its influence to block it. So this is one political issue that is real. A second one is amongst the Iraqis themselves. You have, on one hand, the Kurds who need American presence because of Turkey, because of a number of issues. And on the other hand, the Iraqi government or the rest of Iraq also needs US presence, but for a totally different reasons. Because currently Iraq has no strong army. It's very exposed to its neighbors. And the Iraqi government genuinely wants a strong alliance with the US at this moment while it's healing and rebuilding itself. But these two agendas are different. Why the Kurds are pushing it is very different from why.
But that's not an issue in the agreement itself.
No.
You do have some very strong opposition among some of the groups in the country. Muqtada al-Sadr had big demonstrations a while back, and then there are others in the Sunni community who at one point were looking more favorably at the U.S. presence, now feel a bit abandoned. And can this pass Parliament?
No. But the reason I'm saying, while there are technical points being raised, really it's politics, and it's the motives, forces behind the politics that is stopping it.
Okay. What would be wrong with continuing the UN mandate if that's what it comes to?
It's a possibility. I think the Iraqi government is preparing itself to do that. It means continued US presence under terms even worse than the terms that are proposed. It's a trade-off between should we take it for a year, another year, or should we negotiate something a bit long-term for the next 2 to 3 years?
The question is about the Parliament. Could anything pass the Parliament, or despite all of the jiggering around of details and getting it actually right for the government itself and having it pass the cabinet, it still has to go to a Parliament that will see this as a political football.
Absolutely.
To kick around. And so is it dead on arrival no matter what shape it's in?
I think under current conditions, it is dead at arrival. Yeah. A lot of politicians, including former Prime Minister Alawi, who spoke publicly, openly against it and advised the government not to sign it now, to await the new administration to put its act together and to come to negotiate with the new.
How's Barack Obama viewed in Iraq?
Positively. It's. I mean, in fact, I was reading on the internet some of the popular chants and demonstrations in the streets, very much in his favor. Why, I don't know, but as I said.
Do people fear, those who want U.S. the protective umbrella, do they fear that an Obama presidency abandons that?
Well, I think Obama made it public and known he wants U.S. troops out of Iraq. And in that respect, that resonated with a lot of Iraqis. A lot of Iraqis would like to see U.S. troops out of Iraq, but not under any conditions. They do want to secure stability.
The new election law. It's something else that we've been reading about. A couple of disturbing articles. Something else that Barack Obama spoke out on, and that's the removal initially of the quota for minority, specifically religious minority seats in the Parliament. He actually wrote a letter to Secretary Rice asking her to be a little more specific in dealing with the Iraqis on the question of protection of minority rights, seats in the parliament and the election law. What is going to happen there? Will those minority communities who've already been decimated through refugee, being forced out as refugees, will they continue to have rights in Iraq? Or are we going to, number one, be stuck with this kind of sectarian-based system no matter what we do?
I think the problems are not with the law or what's on paper. What's on paper sounds great. You look at it, it's impressive. It's the reality that counts. What institutions are there to implement the law? What's happening on the ground when there are violations? How are they dealt with? It's the fact, the absence of effective state institutions, the absence of strong legal system, the absence of strong independent judiciary, the fact that political leaders are not held accountable currently to the law. You have statements coming from different leaders. Different troops are sent to different areas, not under one command. This is what's causing concern and alarm. So when minorities are exposed to violations, there is no state machinery to follow up on these violations.
If the Prime Minister created a bit of a flap the other day, saying that he wanted the Constitution redone. The issue of federalism, he said, needed to be looked at again, wanted a stronger central government. There's concern. Joe Biden calls for dividing Iraq into three parts. Barack Obama hasn't supported that. What is the current mood in Iraq today on that? And over Kurdish objections, is it possible to take a new look at this federalism issue and strengthen the central government?
I was in Iraq when the Constitution was drafted and when it was put in a referendum. And although I was a spokesman of the government at that time, I hoped and wished that they can modify that Constitution further. The reason being, while Kurdish concerns were strong and were accommodated, and it was necessary to accommodate them, their demands, the rest of the country, the Constitution was designed for the rest of the country, which did not have the same concerns. So what you have really, you're left up with a constitution that accommodates the Kurds, but it's not suitable for the rest of Iraq. So there is genuine grounds why one needs to have a revised constitution, but Kurdish concerns can be accommodated. So that, I think, is an issue that can be dealt with. It doesn't necessarily mean unraveling the whole thing. And as far as the idea of dividing Iraq into three blocks, actually it's not workable. It might sound convenient as an easy exit strategy, but the reality is there is a distinct area, which is a Kurdish area, speaks different language, it's all mountains. But the rest of Iraq is one cultural block. It's predominantly Arab, it's open. Society, cities, communities are really integrated despite the recent.
But there has been this
violence.
ethnic cleansing phenomena that's taken place, and the physical divisions, even within Baghdad itself. I mean, with walls separating neighborhoods from each other, and about 1/5 of the population either refugee or internally displaced. Can you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? I mean, can these pieces re-emerge as a single country, despite the intermarriage and the cultural mingling that occurred before? But has this all changed?
Well, these are scars, but to make such judgment, I ask you to look at three things. One, throughout history, this has not been an issue, so that's one strong reason. Take the shrines in Samarra that were bombed, that caused the sectarian violence. They have been there for over 1,000 years in Sunni areas. They've never been touched. It has never been an issue. So this, what happened is exceptional. Number two, what happened because Iraq had no government to protect its borders. So you have Al-Qaeda's influence and Iran's influence, many agendas that wanted to weaken Iraq, and that's what happened. And the third reason, of course, it's very exceptional what Iraqis are going through now. Once normality is restored, or normalcy is restored, then I think you will see different dynamic emerging amongst Iraqis.